Hello, beautiful friends. This is the Organizer Advisor here to help you enhance your happiness and transform your life. Welcome to my cottage kitchen here at Ravensduke Cottage. This is Fiscal Fast Week, so I want to jump right in. So just go grab your hydration beverage. To me, it's just water today, but let's have a sip and a sit while you watch this video. And I want to show you one of my favorite money saving tips. And this is for money saving on groceries and eating out. This is my Fiscal Fast Week. It's the last week of the month, and this is when I go through my refrigerator, freezer, and pantry, and I look at what I have that kind of needs to be used so I don't throw out food. I really abhor wasting food, and so I want to maximize my food budget by utilizing everything I have before I go out and do that big shopping at the beginning of the month when you get that paycheck. I want to make sure I'm utilizing the food that I already have. So I've developed this system, and I really just take an inventory. I go through my freezer, I clean it out, I look at what I have, what needs to be used. I look at my refrigerator, especially the condiments, produce, and dairy. Those are the things that are going to go bad quickly, so you want to take kind of an inventory. And my brain loves patterns, so what I end up doing is, oh, this will go good with this, and I can make this and this, use these things to make this. So I literally create a menu, and I do this every week, but not to the scale that I do it during Fiscal Fast, because Fiscal Fast, if you don't know what that is the last week of the month. That's when I kind of reduce any kind of unnecessary spending. So this is when I'm gonna eat at home, pack lunches, make my coffees at home. So I'm reducing how much money I spend in that grab and go food or going out to eat, grabbing coffee at the coffee shop, buying lunch. I'm staying home more, and I'm really deliberate about it. And I implemented fiscal fasting as a strategy about 2 decades ago, and it shifted my paradigm about money. I used to shop for entertainment or avoidance, and I also used to eat for entertainment or avoidance. Just depends on your situation. But I found myself wanting to be outside my home more than inside my home. So I had to figure out why. But it was the environment of my home. It was cluttered, I was overwhelmed, I didn't think I could keep up. There was always something to do. And then I developed this system so that I could do all the things that I love doing, but I'm not spending all of my free time trying to catch up around the house. So I have a video on that, and I'll link it here if I can. But back to the menu. So what I do is I look at all the ingredients I have, I formulate a plan, then I write down a shopping list of what do I need to buy to execute that. So the last week of the month, my grocery budget is very small because I'm using the stuff that I already have, so I have plenty of ingredients. So in this video, I am going to be making my cornbread, cast iron cornbread with rosemary and rose petals, and I'm gonna serve this warm with a lavender infused honey. So it's amazing. Anyway, I have the oven heating up to 400. I do have a cast iron skillet. I have greased this with just a little bit of vegetable oil, and I'm gonna preheat this in the oven. While the oven is preheating, I'm gonna heat the cast iron pan. So we'll pop that in there, and I have my pot holders right there so that when I pull it out, I can pour my cornbread mix right into that. Okay, so what inspired me to cook was because I have some cornmeal. Now, I don't like leaving food open. I live in Florida, and the humidity makes food go bad a lot faster. So I like to use things while they're fresh. They have the most flavor that way. So this was opened about a month ago. So at the end of the month, I want to use it all. Now, I also saw, when I was cleaning up my freezer, a little bit of corn. And you know, it's not enough to make really any kind of side dish out of, so I'm gonna throw it into my cornbread. So I'll be talking about some particular things as we go through this, but again, this is my Fiscal Fast meals at home. And because I'm home more during Fiscal Fast, I'm not out shopping, I'm not out, I try to stay home for that week. Not necessarily homebound, but I reduce the amount of errands that I run. That saves me fuel. I try to reduce my consumption at home. But my biggest feature in my Fiscal Fast strategy is utilizing the food so that there's no food waste. But it's also the week that I kind of do more in-depth cleaning in each room so that I am caught up, and I have a whole, I posted some PDFs on what I do. It's called the end of the month reset. That's when I do it, is during that Fiscal Fast, because I'm home more. I have more time at home, and what that did was it corrected my home environment so it was more conducive for me to be interacting in a positive way. My home, I increased my home's positive vibes, and then that made me feel like staying home more, so I wasn't out going to eat as much as avoidance or shopping as much. So enough of that. Let's get started on the cornbread. So I have everything measured out. I'm gonna go through what I have. I'm gonna just put it in this pretty little bowl, and then I'm gonna mix it together. So what I'm going to do is add 1 1/4 cup cornmeal. I'm gonna do all the dry ingredients first, and then I'll blend them all together with the whisk, and then I'll put in the wet ingredients. Okay, and so now this is a 3/4 cup of all-purpose flour. And all of these things I had on hand, so I'm gonna be utilizing not just the cornbread and the corn, but some of these other baking ingredients. Now I'm gonna use 1/4 cup of sugar, just white sugar. And I'm going to use 2 teaspoons of baking powder and 1/2 teaspoon of baking soda. And I mixed them in here, so they're going in there. And then I'm going to use 1 teaspoon salt. I like a little bit more salt in this. Now I'm gonna whisk all that together. Now, just to mention, my Frenchies are in, Lita and Willa are in. Who knows, right now they're sleeping, which is great. Willa's right, well, she's not. She's right here looking straight at me, wondering if I'm gonna feed her anything. So this is nice and mixed. And now I'm going to add 1/3 cup milk and 1 cup of buttermilk, which I mixed together in here. I'm just gonna pour that in. And then I'm going to add 2 eggs. Now I'm gonna talk a little bit about eggs. Okay, so at Ravens Duke Cottage, we raise rare breeds and heritage breeds chicks, Lavender Orpingtons, Lavender Americanas, and my favorite is the Blue Birchen Copper Marrons, which are really rare chickens. So I hatch most all of the big eggs that we collect, but we also have a bunch of Banty chickens. These are those little tiny chickens. I got frizzles. There are all kinds of pictures on this. If you want to go to our Facebook page at Ravens Duke Cottage, you can see how I ended up using my Fiscal Fast strategies to pay for this cottage, $35,000 with 1 1/4 acres of land. This is a 2,000 square foot cottage. It has a whole upstairs that hardly anybody even realizes it's up there. But this was, I was able to purchase this cottage because I had implemented that fiscal fasting strategy. So I was able to save the money and pay cash. So that's pretty cool. All right, so I want to talk about eggs. Now, all of our chickens are free range. And when I mean free range, I mean free range. I mean, they're in the front yard. You can hear them. They're over here. They go around the gardens. They eat bugs. No need for an exterminator here because the chickens eat all the bugs before they even get in the house. They aerate the gardens. They fertilize the gardens. So they are quite an asset, but they do kind of meander all over the place. So there's in the front yard, they're in the side yard, they're in the rose garden, sometimes even over at the neighbors. But we have hundreds of acres of fields around us. So the farmers have just harvested the peanut crop, so they are having a field day in the field, literally. So the eggs that we get from the chickens are so much more nutritious because they have those phytonutrients from eating all the greens, the weeds, the grass, and all the extra protein from eating all the bugs. So this calls for 2 eggs, but these are little tiny Banty eggs. So I want to show you the difference between, this is a Banty egg, and then this is one of our copper marron eggs. You see the difference? So I'm going to add another egg to this. And instead of using 2 small eggs, add 4 of the smaller eggs. It's not going to hurt if it goes a little bit over. But I save all the egg shells, and those go right out to the chickens. It increases their calcium, and that gives them plenty of calcium to produce more eggs. So here I'm going to add these 4 little tiny eggs. Can you see them? And I'm going to pour them in here. And then if you can see right behind me, the orange, that's one of my incubators. I have 2 incubators running pretty much full time. We have literal layers of chicks. We have chicks that are about 6 weeks old that are now just learning to free range. They're in a protected yard. And then we have chicks that are about 3 weeks old. They are in the big chicken house in the little brooder, but they're off the heat lamps. Then I have back here in this room, I have my little chick brooder, which has maybe about 5 chicks in it right now. And then I have the stage of where they are just hatched. And I have 4 that just hatched. So they're under heat lamps. They're back there in that room. And so literal layers and layers of chicks. So, and these 2, as soon as I've got a couple of chicks that are going to hatch a little later today, when they come out, these eggs are going to go right into the incubator. So we eat the little Banty eggs. Now, back to the cooking. So I've added the eggs. Now I'm going to add a 1/2 cup of melted butter. And I did use salted butter on this. Now comes the good part. Okay, the oven is preheated to 400. That's good, we're right on time. And now I'm gonna add rose petals. Now it's not rose season here, it's fall. So, but my roses bloom up until usually the first freeze, but there's just not a lot of blooms. So these are some of the roses from the rose garden, and I'm gonna just pop these in here. And then this is some rosemary, and we fertilize all of our roses and all of our herbs with some of our chicken fertilizer. So it's really a symbiotic win-win situation. All right, so now I'm gonna trim up some fresh rosemary right out of the garden. Just picked it a few minutes ago. This gives the cornbread a really nice herbal flavor. Rosemary and rose petals go really well. I do a rose petal and rosemary sourdough, which is amazing. But then I use the lavender honey. It's amazing. You just get all of those floral and herbal notes, and it just, to me, is, all right, I think that's probably enough. Put that there. Now I'm going to blend all this together just a bit before I add the corn. Okay, now I'm gonna add, this is just like 1/4 of a bag of frozen corn. I wanna make sure all the pieces are broken up, so I think I'm gonna put it in a bowl first. That way I don't get big chunks of corn. Okay, so one of the things I want to talk about is a lot of people start to get really anxious when I talk about utilizing the food that you have on hand, because when they start to see pantry being bare, the refrigerator being, not overstocked with food, and the refrigerator not being fully stocked with food toward the end of the month, people get into a panic, and the first thing they think is, what if something happens, like an emergency, and I'm not able to get food? Well, I have a system for that. I actually have a food storage bank we keep in a storage room off the back of the house, and I have invested in freeze-dried food. So I have buckets of freeze-dried food, and those will suffice in an emergency. I have plenty of food to feed me and my family for a somewhat extended period of time. But that gives me that food security, so that when I start to empty my refrigerator, my freezer, and my pantry with utilizing the food before it gets wasted or goes bad, or I, have to second guess what's in that can, then I don't get that panic sensation about, I don't have a backup food in the case that there is some sort of an emergency. I live in Florida. Hurricanes happen all the time. So, we lose power, we lose, roads are, blocked. I've been here long enough to know that I need to be prepared. So I do have that food storage. So that eliminates any anxiety about reducing the food that I have that's fresh, so that I don't feel like, oh wow, now I don't have any food. I know I have food stored. So that gives me that sense of food security. And so I don't get into that panic. So if you find yourself getting concerned about that, it might be because you don't feel that you have the food security. But the way to correct that, or to help modify that, would be to go ahead and invest in some, and I highly recommend freeze-dried food. It lasts 25 years. That's my kids' inheritance. I mean, they'll inherit the food, because I'm 60. I don't think I'm going to live that long. So, all right, back to the cornbread. We are almost ready here. Oh my gosh, this is so beautiful. And you can just smell the floral and the herbs. Look how pretty that is. Okay, I'm gonna mix for a couple more minutes. I don't wanna over mix this, but I just wanna make sure you can see the yellow, how bright yellow that is. That's from those really enriched egg yolks. Let's just pop that off like that. You can see the pretty rose petal colors. That's just gorgeous, really. Now, let's pull this out. Nice thing about these countertops, these are all mosaic tile, glass tile. They're great as trivets. So I can just put all my hot pans right there. So, oh, you can hear it sizzle. Okay, so this is going to bake for about 20 to 25 minutes, and then I'm going to cool for about 10 minutes before I slice it. That way it doesn't get really, really crumbly. And then what I'm going to do, I'm going to go ahead and use the rest of this rosemary. I'm just going to pop that right on top there. There we go. And then I'll serve it with that lavender infused honey. I thought that I had that out to show you. I'll get it while it's cooking. Okay. There. Now you want to set your timer for 20 to 25 minutes, but you also want to make sure that it's fully done by inserting a toothpick into the center. Okay, so another thing I wanted to share with you is this was a little berry cobbler that I made this morning. This I had a little 3/4 bag of frozen berries, and then I had a couple of jars of jelly, just open jars of jelly. So I cooked the berries with some sugar and just a little bit of sugar, but then I put that jelly in, melted it down, put that in there, and then I made a crumble topping with pecan flour, almond flour, some brown sugar, butter, and then I topped it with some slivered almonds. So as it cooked, those almonds got that nice roasty, toasty flavor. So this is going to be delicious as dessert. I'm also going to make, and I'll do a video when I make that, I'm going to make some meatloaf because I have some breadcrumbs to use, and I also have some picante sauce. So I'm going to show you how to make my Mexicali meatloaf, which is going to go great with this cornbread. So I think that's it. I'll show you when this pops out of the oven what it looks like, and then we'll slice it up with some of that lavender infused honey, and it's going to be amazing. So I'm going to clean up while this is cooking, and then I will pull this out of the oven. While this is cooking, I'm going to go ahead and start on the meatloaf, so stay tuned. Okay, so I'm going to get started on this Mexicali meatloaf, and let me get my pan out first. I'm going to use a silicone pan. All right, so all of these recipes that I'm showing you today are in my Ravensduke Cottage cookbook that I'm writing, that I'm almost finished with. But most of these recipes are from creations that I concocted using ingredients during this fiscal fast, because it's a very creative process. And if you're not quite a confident cook, Google some recipes. You can just Google the ingredients and you're going to get a plethora of recipes. Try and look at a recipe that utilizes many of the ingredients that you have, or as many as you can. That way you're really combining your efforts, plus you're eating healthy, you're eating at home, less processed foods, and you're preparing meals. Now, you can also make these meals, like this meatloaf, can be frozen, so it's a heat and eat meal later on. It can be sliced into serving sizes and frozen for lunches. So there's a lot of ways you can utilize the food. It doesn't have to be eaten right away, but you're not throwing it away, and that's the most important. So we're going to do this Mexicali meatloaf, and what inspired this was because I did have some, a little over half a jar of picante sauce. And I also had a little bit of fajita mix. I'm going to mix them together. And then I had some ketchup. I don't normally use a whole lot of ketchup, so I want to go ahead and use this before it kind of goes bad. But also I had some crispy jalapenos I'm going to put on top of this. It's going to be amazing. So grab your hydration beverage or get a refill. Let's have a sip and a sit, and I am going to make this Mexicali meatloaf while the cornbread is cooking. So as soon as that cornbread comes out, this is going in. And the nice thing about it is I don't clean my kitchen until the last day of the month. So that's kind of part of my monthly process. So I'm finished my fiscal fasting meals at home prep. So I clean, my refrigerator will be clean, my freezer will be clean, my microwave will be clean, and I can then clean my oven, and I start my month with fresh food that I can really select when I go to the grocery store to restock healthier versions of the food, so that you're enhancing your health and your well-being by making healthier food ingredient choices. All right, and you have a clean slate. So let's get started. I have 2 pounds of ground beef. Now I have some 70-30 and some 80-20, and I'm going to mix them together. And then I'm going to add all of the other ingredients. But here's a little trick. If you chop a lot of onions, I'm going to take this off. I always wear gloves when I'm working with hamburger, if I'm going to use my hands to mix it. So if you're chopping onions, you can use your, I got these for $1 at a wholesale construction store. This is my PPE, and that means I can chop onions tear-free. So that helps if you chop a lot of onions like I do. All right, so I'm not going to saute these. I'm just going to pop them right in. I'm probably not going to use all of those. I kind of cook by intuition. So that's all I'm going to put in there. Now I'm going to mix that up with this jalapeno. I'm going to save some of this to sprinkle on top of this ketchup, but I want to put some in here as seasoning. Another thing I want to mention is when you are doing your cooking, don't forget your spices. Spices have a shelf life. So you want to be looking at your spices and, how long has this been open? Does it still have flavor? If it has a really strong aroma, it still has a lot of flavor. But once that aroma starts to dissipate, you're losing flavor. So I'm going to use a little bit of this in here, almost half, maybe 3/4. I'm gonna save some to sprinkle on top of that ketchup to give it kind of that really nice kick. Now I'm gonna add some picante sauce. I'm gonna save a little bit of this as kind of like a dipping sauce for the meatloaf, because I like to dip it in. So I'm gonna save a little bit of this left in the jar, but at dinner time tonight, this is gonna go. In fact, I'll put that into a bowl. Then I'm gonna add, now remember I was talking earlier about, I have Banties, the full-size eggs that we get, we do sell. Everybody has caught on that free-range, pasture-raised eggs are so much healthier and they have so much more flavor than store-bought eggs. So, but because I incubate and sell my chicks for our rare breed chickens that we raise here at Ravensduke Cottage, we have lavender Orpingtons, we have lavender Americanas, and I have blue birchen copper marrons. So these are the blue birchen copper marron eggs. These are the lavender Orpington eggs. And then the Americanas lay those really pretty green eggs. So we have really beautiful eggs, and we have a clientele that loves our eggs, so we sell them. But all the big eggs right now are going into the incubators. Right there is our incubators full of eggs. Then, so we use, in cooking, I'm just using my Banty eggs right now until chick season is over. Banty eggs are smaller, but you can see that nice golden rich yolk. That's from the phytonutrients and from the plants and weeds that they eat. They forage all day long, and then they also eat tons of bugs. So no need for an exterminator here at this house, because the chickens get the bugs before they get in. Plus they fertilize all the gardens, so works out. So I'm gonna, instead of using, this calls for 2 eggs, I'm gonna use, I'm gonna double that because I'm using much smaller eggs. I'm using the Banty eggs. So I'm gonna pop that in. Now I'm gonna add a little salt and pepper. Now you can add green chilies to this if you want, but there's green chilies in the picante sauce, so I'm not gonna double up on that. And then I'm gonna add about a teaspoonful of salt. And then, I'm using Himalayan sea salt. And I know everybody's going, you didn't take that glove off. I wipe everything down. So this is a cup of breadcrumbs, another thing that I needed to use in my pantry. So when I saw the ketchup and the picante, I was like, oh, I think I have breadcrumbs. So this is almost empty, and I don't quite need the rest, but there's only about that much left. I'll just feed it to the chickens. They'll love some fresh breadcrumbs. All right, so there we go. Now, the only other thing that I'm gonna use in this recipe is I'm going to use some pepper jack cheese. I got just a 1 pound brick, and I sliced it into 3, and I'll show you what to do because we're gonna stuff this meatloaf. Now, I'm gonna go ahead and stir this up, and then I'll use my fingers to incorporate it, and I'm gonna show you what we're gonna do, and it's gonna make this meatloaf amazing. Again, this can be frozen and then used later on in the month as a heat and eat meal when you're running late from work, or you got stuck in traffic, or you had, you know, the football practice ran late, or you're just tired, you don't feel good, and you just got super busy. And so this is great because you can thaw this out and have a heat and eat meal that is inexpensive, and you used a lot of ingredients you probably would have just ended up throwing away. So you're saving a whole lot of money, and you're maximizing your food dollars, and that is so important right now. Okay, plus you're decluttering your kitchen, believe it or not. Your refrigerator is going to be decluttered because you're using these things. And the thing about having a refrigerator that is decluttered is you can see what you have, and that is going to help you utilize those ingredients. When you have a refrigerator that is way overstocked, you cannot literally keep up with all the ingredients in there. So a lot of it ends up going to waste. Okay, so you can see how nicely incorporated this is. I can smell that nice picante flavor. Oh, Willa got a little treat. She stays right by my feet so that if I drop anything while I'm cooking, she's on it. All right, I want to go ahead and get this nice and stuffed. before my cornbread is finished, and it should be getting to be about finished. In fact, I'm gonna check it. We don't want to burn it. Oh, okay. We got to take that out. You've got to see this. I'm gonna go ahead and pull this off. I think I mixed up enough. Yeah. Is that not beautiful? Absolutely stunning. All right, it can go right on this counter because my counter is mosaic glass tile, works just like a trivet. All right, so now I'm gonna lower this to 350. Let that temperature come back. I still have a glove here I can use to stuff this meatloaf. Now, I'm gonna take my silicone pan and I'm going to put meatloaf all in the bottom. And I'm going to press it down. Let me see if I can move this so you can see what I'm doing. There we go. Okay. So now I'm going to press it down like this. Get it nice and solid in there. Oh, a lot of onions, and there's green pepper from the picante sauce. Has that nice tomato base. Gives it so much flavor. But we're gonna add this pepper jack cheese. So now what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna kind of build up and make a reservoir in the center so I can put the cheese blocks in. Okay? This is actually a lot of fun. And you know what? Get your kids cooking with you. My children, I had two boys, Aaron and Kyle, and so proud of both of them. But we cook together as a family. And now I'm so happy because my children, okay, so I don't have enough to do that, so I'm gonna have to make this a little smaller. I'm actually going to shift my bowls. I'm going to use this one instead because I'm going to need enough to go on top of the cheese. Okay. So, have to change my strategy. But I like to get the meat nicely, tightly packed in so that when you slice the meatloaf, it holds together and it doesn't like come apart in pieces. So you want to pack it in there pretty tightly. And now I'm going to build up around the sides so that I can make a reservoir for my cheese to go in. So I'm going to literally just put the cheese right down the center so that when the meat gets cooked to the core, which you want to make sure that you cook it thoroughly, then that cheese is just going to start to melt and it's going to taste so good. And when you slice it, it looks so pretty. Okay, so kind of want to get it as even as possible so that the cheese doesn't melt through. On one part and then not have any on the other part. Okay, so almost done. Bear with me. I'll shorten this in the video so that you're not having to watch me. Okay, now what I'm going to do is I'm going to take the block of meat and I've sliced it. That way I can get a little meat in between. This over here, put this here front and center. And then I'm just going to fold the sides over. And then I'm going to put this block in the center. And then I'm going to just fill in like this. can smell that cornbread. It is amazing. I'm just saying. I love it. We have herb garden and a rose garden here, so I really try to infuse a lot of my recipes with floral notes and the herbs because they just give so much flavor. And rosemary is actually really good for you, so I use it in the cornbread a lot. I use it in my sourdough. Okay, so now what I want to do is just make this all kind of level. Now, I've tried using picante sauce as a topping for this, but it's not the same. Meatloaf isn't the same without ketchup, just saying. So that's why I'm going to use the rest of that fajita seasoning on top of the ketchup to give that ketchup a little bit of spice to it. But meatloaf just isn't the same if you don't have ketchup. Okay, good enough. Now, take that off. Now I'm going to come over here. You can also sprinkle some onions on top, but I'm just going to drizzle this ketchup right on top of it. Oh, also, just so you know, when I open my condiments, I label the date so that I know when I need to use it. Now, this one was just opened this month, but it was at the beginning of the month. So I kind of feel better that I use it by the end because we don't eat it a lot. So it's not like it's going to be used by the end of the month unless I really prepare a recipe with it. Go back and fill in any gaps. Okay. Now, before I forget, I'm going to put a pan inside so I can put one, that way I don't have any spills. Although I have a drip pan in there and I clean the oven at the end, I still want to make sure I don't have too much of a mess. Work harder, work smarter, not harder. Okay, so this is the fajita. And it really uses about the same spices as if I were to use a taco mix. It's very similar, so I'm not too worried about having an unknown spice flavor in my meatloaf. Okay, now I'm going to go back over with some more ketchup just to kind of get that in. I could have mixed it, but then I would have not got this really nice drizzly effect. There we go. I think we're about done with the ketchup, so okay. Now I'm just going to sprinkle a few of the onions on top, and then when this comes out, before I serve it, I'm going to serve it with the residual picante sauce, and I'm going to sprinkle it with these crispy jalapenos, which are really, really good. So this is going to the oven. This is going to go in for, you want to make sure that the temperature is 190 degrees inside. So you're going to cook this. It's going to be for about an hour, but you want to just make sure it's finished. So use your instant read thermometer inside. There we go. Okay, now I'm going to wash my hands and we're going to take a look at this cornbread. Okay, so before I forget, I wanted to show some of the things that I've used today. I used the breadcrumbs. This can be recycled. I used the rest of the picante sauce. This is going to be recycled. I used most of the ketchup. I will use this in another recipe this week. And I'm going to use these crispy jalapenos on top of the meatloaf tonight, so that's going to be used. I also used the frozen berries, a 3/4 bag of frozen berries, and then I used some open jars of jelly. So I had some berry jelly, and I think I even had some lime jelly. I threw them in here. Then I made a cobbler crust out of pecan flour, almond flour, and some slivered almonds. And that's going to be dessert. So just by using those ingredients, oh, and then I used the bag of corn. So by using those ingredients, I'm reducing the clutter in my kitchen, in my refrigerator, in my freezer. So now I have a decluttering process where I'm utilizing the food so it doesn't go to waste, and I'm saving money on my groceries, and I'm not eating out this week. So I'm eating healthier, and I control what goes in my food. We here at Ravensdew Cottage try to locally source our ingredients. We utilize a lot of our own produce that we grow, as well as the eggs that we produce. So all of my eggs that I use here are eggs from our dear sweet chickens. All right, I'll be back in a minute. So this cornbread looks and smells amazing. Look at that. Nice, crispy on the outside. Let's see what it looks like on the inside. So it sat for about 10 minutes. So I feel like I can go ahead and cut. Oh my gosh, it's so tender, so moist, which is hard to get in cornbread. All right, let's see if I can pull this out of here. Try this little thing. Look at that. Oh, is that not gorgeous? You can see the corn in there. There's the rose petal. Look at that. Is that not absolutely gorgeous? Now, oh, that's beautiful. I'm so happy with that. Now, I'm going to serve it with some wild lavender honey. I'm just going to drizzle that over the top. Taste it. It's still a little warm, but I don't think I'm going to do that. I'm going to just pull a piece. Oh, seriously. You can even see how perfect the bottom is. Not too brown, nice and crispy. Very moist. So there you go. The honey makes it. I mean, the lavender with the rosemary and the rose petal, and then you get that sweetness from the corn. It's absolutely amazing. One of the first things I learned to make was cornbread from my grandfather. He used to call them Johnny cakes, but he made a bacon cornbread, and that was the first thing I ever learned to cook. This is like a dessert. Super good. I'm happy. Okay. I'll be back when I pull this meatloaf out of the oven. I don't want to show you that. So stick around. I'll see you in a few. Okay, so I wanted you to meet someone special. This is one of our little chickens that just hatched yesterday. This is one of our blue birchen copper marrons. Very rare breed here in the United States. They lay these beautiful bronze colored eggs. As the chickens get older, the eggs will get darker and they will look like chocolate. So beautiful eggs to sell to our customers, but these are the eggs we're hatching out. And so this one came out of this incubator just yesterday. So say hi to everyone. There you go. Can you see yourself? Say bye. Okay, everybody, the meatloaf I think is finished, so I'm gonna pull that out, but we're gonna check the temperature first, make sure it gets to that 160 degrees on the inside. And so I'm gonna just pop this in for a second. Okay, 161, 162, we are ready to come out. So let's go ahead and look at that. Is that not amazing? It smells so delicious. So let's see. Look just, all right, so again, this can be, let it cool so that it doesn't fall apart when you slice it. But I'm gonna let it sit here for a little bit, and then it can be sliced and served. It can also be frozen. So if you want to freeze it, go ahead and slice it in individual servings, wrap it really well. You could vacuum seal it, but then it'll be a quick heat and eat meal for one of those days that you're just too tired to cook or got caught up at work or in traffic. Okay, so before we finish, right before serving, I'm going to sprinkle on some of these crispy jalapenos. And I also have in reserve a little picante sauce so that I can dip it. And then it's going to be served with this beautiful cornbread, rosemary, rose petal cornbread with corn. Oh, this is amazing. Served with a lavender infused wild lavender honey. And then for dessert, we're going to have the berry cobbler with that pecan and almond cobbler topping with the slivered roasted almonds. This is going to be served with a little whipped cream. So there it is. This whole meal utilized some berries, some jelly, some baking goods that I have in the refrigerator. For the cornbread, I used some cornmeal that I had. I used some flour that I had, some sugar, and then also some of that little bag of frozen corn. That's utilizing before, so I used the frozen berries, the frozen corn, and then this I used some picante sauce and that ketchup, and then I had an onion on hand, I used that. So, and then those breadcrumbs. So you can see how combining these ingredients that I have on hand is saving me money. I bought very little, so to be honest, I bought for the cornbread, the only thing I had to buy was some buttermilk. And then for the berry cobbler, I didn't have to buy anything. I had everything on hand. And then for the meatloaf, the only thing I purchased for that was the hamburger and then that brick of pepper jack cheese. Everything else I had on hand. And then I'm also going to use the rest of that bag of these crispy jalapenos to go on top. So now you can see how much of my grocery budget has been diminished because I really have only bought hamburger, cheese, and buttermilk, and now I have a whole meal. Okay, I'm going to let this cool. I'll be back in a minute when I slice it so you can see the inside, and then we'll give it a taste test. Okay, so I'm really happy with everything. I've already sliced this. Look at that beautiful meatloaf. You can see the pepper jack cheese that's melted on the inside. I'm going to cut another slice of this beautiful cornbread. Look at that. I mean, this was a very inexpensive meal. Now, I'm going to take the little bit of this picante sauce. Just going to put a little bit right here, and then I'm going to put those crispy jalapenos right on top. And then here's the berry dessert, the berry cobbler made with that frozen berries and those little bit of jar, the little bit left in some jars of jelly. So let's taste this and see how we did. Oh, very good. And with the crunch of those crispy jalapenos, brings out the flavor. So amazing. Oh, I can feel it warm in my tummy. Little bit of heat. But that ketchup cools it off with a little bit of that fajita seasoning. So the tastes blend really well together. All right. That's Fiscal fast meals at home. Very inexpensive, using what I have. Only had to buy like 4 ingredients, and was able to execute an entire dinner menu, cornbread, meatloaf, and dessert. So, don't you love all that cheese? from that stuffed meatloaf. There you go. Join me for the next video. I will be continuing the video series this week, so make sure you hit that subscribe button, follow me on Facebook, and also check my playlist. You'll find these videos in Purging the Pantry and in that playlist. So thank you so much. I look forward to seeing you in the next video, and until then, thank you for watching this video. I hope you found it helpful. If you would like more support, ideas, guidance, frameworks, and some positive, uplifting suggestions, please check out some of my other videos. You can activate your subscription on my YouTube channel and hit that notification bell so that you'll be notified when I post newer content. But those playlists are a framework for you to organize all aspects of your life to enhance your happiness and transform the life that you're living. I can't wait to see you in the next video. Until then, my dear friends, I hope you have a wonderful day.